The Christmas season is absolutely my favorite time of year, and that's because I have so many fond memories of when I was a kid at Christmas time. And most of these projects today were inspired by some memory or just a favorite decoration or maybe an ornament, something like that I remember from my childhood. And I hope they inspire you to recreate something that you loved as a kid as well. Thank you for stopping by Lavender and Lace. I'm Alicia, and I hope you will consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Please give this video a thumbs up, and without further ado, let's jump into these projects. Dollar Tree had these really great metal pans in their fall section this year. They were in the plus section, and these were $5. So I did one of these for fall, and I wanted to do one for Christmas. So I just started by spray painting this one. I did a couple of coats, and I used my Rust-Oleum 2x primer spray paint, and I think that color was Colonial Red. That is my favorite spray paint for any kind of project. And then I went into Design Space and uploaded this image. I had found this bundle on Creative Fabrica, and I will link that for you guys in the description box. So I just sized that to fit my little Santa tray that I'm going to be making. And with this design, I did have to weld everything together. Otherwise, it was going to cut every element out separately. So if you use these designs, just make sure to weld them so you don't have to do all of that work of putting all of those together like that. That would just be a headache. So I just cut that out using my Cricut Maker, and I used this StarCraft permanent vinyl, and this was glossy. I just thought that would match my tray a little bit better since that spray paint is glossy as well. And I just cut out my design and weeded everything out and got that ready to apply to my tray. And with a larger design like this, I try to take my time and not get in a hurry, and I will pull up a small section and then just trim that vinyl off. I have learned the hard way to not try to pull everything off at the same time, or otherwise your vinyl can kind of fold over on itself and just stick to your design, and you don't want that when you're doing projects like this. And for those really small detailed areas that cut out, I use these pen tools. These are great for these smaller areas like that. I picked these up on Amazon, and I will see if I can find the link for those and leave that for you guys as well in the description box. This just makes your life a little bit easier if you have kind of a detailed design like this one. And then I just use some of the clear transfer tape that I get from Expressions Vinyl. I will link that for you all as well. And if you don't want to shop on their website, you can find this on Amazon as well. I made sure to burnish my design down very well with my little burnishing Cricut tool and just peeled back that paper backing from my design. I love this design. It is just so cute and just takes me back to my childhood. Me and my brother always put out milk and cookies for Santa on Christmas Eve, and I wish my kids were younger. I would totally put this out on Christmas Eve, but it's funny though because Gracelyn actually wants to keep this one because she still likes to put out milk and cookies for Santa, even though she's 14 years old, so go figure. But I just applied that to my tray and just made sure to rub that down really well. And vinyl sticks really well to metal surfaces that have been spray painted. And then I just peeled back that transfer sheet carefully so I didn't pull up any of my design. And I am loving how this is looking so far. I think that red and the white were just the perfect combo. It just makes me think of Santa's suit. And then I just took some white hot glue and just added some in a few different areas on my tray. And I had some of these faux sprinkles that I got from Amazon last year. I will link those as well. And I just put a few of those here and there in the hot glue to kind of make this look like it had icing on the tray. I just thought that was a really cute touch for this project. And I found these cookie looking ornaments at Walmart. These are just the mini ones, and I thought this snowflake one looked just like a cookie. So I just took my miter shears and cut off that hoop that it had on the top and just glued that into my Santa tray. And I added just a little bit of extra white hot glue to that and some more sprinkles. And this is how my Santa tray turned out. I think this is so cute, and you can make so many Christmas Eve memories with your kids if you put this out, and leave milk and cookies for Santa and some carrots for the reindeer, of course. What do you guys think about this one? I would love your help in reaching my goal of getting 3,000 subscribers by the end of the year. To help me do that, all you have to do is subscribe if you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, and share if you know anyone else that would like this content. And now let's get back to the projects. This project is something that was inspired by something that my granny used to make. I remember her having several of these and making them and giving them away, except she crocheted hers. I'm just using yarn for mine. So I started with 9 canning rings. These are the regular mouth size. And I just wrapped all of those with a couple of different colors of green yarn. And to make this project a little bit easier, I did cut some smaller sections of that yarn, and it was just easier to get all of my rings wrapped that way. This is a little time consuming, so plan accordingly if you want to do this project, but it turns out super cute in the end, so the effort is well worth it. And then I just took a couple of the rings and tied them together with that same color of yarn. I did 2 together, and then I tied those together for each of the rows. So I had 4 on the bottom, 3, 2, and then just that 1 on the top. I did a triple knot on here to make sure that that was very secure. I wasn't really sure how I wanted to go about getting all of these rows together. I was a little concerned that they wouldn't hold well, but so far, so good. Everything is staying the way that I put it together. So once I had all of my rows tied together, I just took some hot glue and glued the rows together. I just put it where the rings would touch each other and held that in place until it was dry. And I just did that for each of my rows until I had my Christmas tree all put together. And on the back, I did a little bit extra hot glue where I had joined everything together or tied everything. I was just hoping this would help it stay a little bit more secure and not fall apart on me. And my granny's project that she did, she made this into a wall hanger. She just crocheted a Christmas tree shape, and she put little bells in hers, and you were just able to hang that on the wall. But for mine, I'm going to display it in a metal bucket, so I needed a tree trunk for my Christmas tree. So I had picked up some of these dowel rods from Walmart. These are the thicker ones that you can find, and I just took my miter shears and cut that down to size the way that I wanted it for my Christmas tree. And I just took some of my Waverly antique wax and stained that until I was happy with the color. And I had my fingers crossed that this part would actually work. I didn't know any other way to attach my little dowel rod to my Christmas tree, so I just took a lot of hot glue and glued that into the middle of that bottom row, and I held that until it was secure. And I also just used some of my scissors to hold that dowel rod up just a little bit off of my table until everything was dry. I did extra hot glue on the front and the back of that, and I grabbed just a scrap piece of this ticking fabric that I have on hand, and I just glued that to the top of the trunk there so it would hide all of that hot glue. And I had picked up several of these metal buckets at Dollar Tree in their fall section this year, and I saved my brown packaging paper that comes in my Amazon packages. So I thought that would work really well just to wrap this bucket and give this kind of a vintage feel to this project. So I just cut that down to size what would wrap around my bucket, and I made sure to measure that before I cut the length that I needed. I was kind of treating this as a Christmas present, just measuring and cutting and wrapping that like you would any kind of gift. And I just wrinkled up my paper a little bit more. I wanted it to look kind of old and rustic and just give it a little bit more texture. And I decided to use glue dots to attach my paper to my bucket. So I did just several down that one side to attach my paper, and then I did a few more around the top because it was sliding off of my bucket without those glue dots. So I just wrapped that around and used some additional glue dots on the other side to get that paper attached to my bucket. For the bottom, I just pushed that paper in over that edge on the bottom of the bucket, just kind of got that to stay where I wanted it to, and just pulled and taped that down to where it was a nice snug fit around my bucket, and I didn't have any loose paper. And I have a styrofoam block that I've had in my stash, so I just glued that into the bottom of this bucket. I thought that would just be an easy way to get the height that I needed for my Christmas tree without having to add a lot of other material in there. And I thought this would be a good way to help my tree to stand up and be upright. And I just took a screwdriver and poked a hole in there and put some hot glue in it before I put my Christmas tree in. And I tried to get this straight. It was a little bit challenging with that styrofoam piece. And I grabbed just some extra pieces of that paper that I got in my Amazon box and just ripped it into some smaller strips. Just wadded that up and stuck it around that styrofoam block in my bucket. This was just a filler, so I didn't have to use a lot of my Spanish moss. Just glued some of that on the top of that styrofoam piece to cover that up. And I cut some smaller pieces of my Spanish moss and got that a little bit more manageable and easier to work with. And just glued that around on top of my brown paper. And I grabbed some small ornament hooks and I cut those in half with my wire cutters. I needed them to be smaller so I could hang my mini ornaments on my Christmas tree. And this was just the best way that I could come up with to hang these ornaments on there. You could possibly use like fishing line and just tie them to each of your canning rings, or the same color yarn if you wanted to do that. In my mind, this was going to be the easiest way to do that, so I just made smaller hooks and hooked them into that yarn of each of my canning rings. Some of that yarn, though, was super tight, so it was a little bit hard to get those to hang in there. And I found these mini ornaments at Walmart and I just thought they were super cute. I love the snowmen. And I just hung one in each of my canning rings. And I grabbed some more of that fabric that I had used for the bow and just cut a small strip and glued that around the bucket. This just gave that another layer of texture to this project. And I did go ahead and fray those edges a little bit more on my fabric just to make that look a little bit more rustic. I love this fabric. Feel free to leave this off if you want to, or you could use ribbon or anything else that you might have on hand. And then I just secured that to my bucket with a little bit of hot glue on the front and glued it on the back. I tried to keep the seam from the paper and that fabric lined up so I could keep that to the back of my Christmas tree. And I had found these metal Christmas ornament tags at my local Dollar General store this year. They were only $1, so I grabbed a couple of these, and I thought this would be the perfect finishing touch for this project. So I just glued that to the center of this bucket, and that is it for this project. I absolutely love how this one turned out. It really makes me think of my granny and the projects that she did for Christmas time. She would just use whatever she had on hand and create beautiful decorative pieces to add to her home. What do you guys think about this one? I love upcycling anytime I can for projects, so that's exactly what I did for this project. I had 3 smaller tomato sauce cans that I just cut the tops off of and washed them out really well. Took those outside and spray painted them with a couple of coats of white spray paint in that 2x paint plus primer spray paint that I like so well. I was fortunate enough to have a really warm day a couple of weeks ago to be able to do some spray painting for these projects in today's video. Once those were dry, I just brought those back in the house, and to get a hole in the tops of these, I took a small nail and a hammer and just punched a hole through those. And here's kind of where this project went a little bit south, I guess you could say. I started by using Rub and Buff first on these to see if I liked the finish that I got on these. You can see that can there in the top right corner, and I didn't really like the coverage that I was getting, so I grabbed some gold acrylic paint that I had on hand and started painting one of the other cans with that, and that did not work at all. It was just not getting any coverage on there. I did 2 coats, and it was basically kind of rubbing that off as I was painting, so I went back to the Rub and Buff and put that on there. So I just kind of went back and forth with this to see what would work well and get the coverage that I wanted on my cans. I want these to look like old rustic bells. So, and I took a Q-tip, excuse me, and got those little creases and indentations on my can. I filled those in with the Rub and Buff using that Q-tip. And sometimes with projects like this was the first time I had ever used Rub and Buff for complete coverage on a project. It's just kind of trial and error to see what works best. So don't get discouraged if you do projects like that. Just keep trying different things and see what works best for you. And I actually really liked the way that The can I had painted with the acrylic paint looked with the rub and buff over it. That's the one on the right versus the one on the left with just rub and buff. So I went back on my other two cans and just did a light coat of that paint on top of the rub and buff. And this actually looks really good now. They look like kind of the aged bronze bells that you can find at Hobby Lobby or other department stores. And for my clanger on the inside of my bells, I just took some jute twine and threaded that through and tied a rusty jingle bell to the bottom of each of those. And one of these bells didn't have the little ball in it to make it jingle, so I had to cut it off and use another one. So don't know what happened there, but anyway, I was able to replace that, and I just repeated that for all of my bells. And I tied a knot in the top of these to keep my jute twine from pulling out. This was a little hard to do to keep that bell at the length that I wanted it. So again, that was just trial and error, tying that where I thought it would work out the best. You might actually want to do another bell on the inside, or excuse me, another knot on the inside on the top of your bell, so when you hang these up, it doesn't pull that to the top of your can. And to make my hanger, I just took a wide mouth canning ring and just wrapped some jute twine all the way around that to get it completely covered. And I just took each of my bells and tied them to my ring. I wanted these to be different lengths, so I measured those out before I tied a knot. You could actually measure these out together before you tie them to your canning ring, if that makes sense. Just grab all of your strings together in a bundle and just pull them to your different lengths that you want for your bells and just tie them on. And I just put a little bow at the join there where I tied them to the ring, and these are ready to be displayed. You can put them on your door, or you can add them to a ladder like I did with mine, but these are just a really great vintage addition to your Christmas decor. Let me know what you guys think about these. So this next project is kind of a 2-for-1, I guess you could say. I like to have different kinds of fillers to add to bowls or vases or any kind of my vintage containers that I like to have on hand. So I just started this one with some styrofoam balls, and I think I got these at Walmart. I got them in a pack of 2. And I have some Christmassy fabric that looks kind of old and vintage in my stash. And I grabbed 3 different colors of that and just ripped it out into smaller strips. And what worked best for me was using just some Mod Podge and a small paintbrush to kind of smooth that out all across the surface of my styrofoam ball, and just started wrapping all of those strips of fabric until I got complete coverage. And that's it for that one. All you have to do is let these sit and dry, and these add some perfect texture to your decor. And this next idea, my granny used to tell me about decorations that they would make every Christmas. They would get the sycamore seeds, the balls off of the sycamore trees every year, and they would just wrap them with some aluminum foil. That's all that they had, and that's what they used to make some ornaments and decorations for their home. So I picked up some different sizes of these styrofoam. I think these are actually just the foam balls, and I got these from Amazon, so I will link those in the description box, along with any other materials and supplies that I am able to that I used in the video. I found these candy foil sheets as well on Amazon, and I just decided to use the red, the green, and the silver for this. And all you have to do is wrap that around your little foam balls. Easy peasy. You can have this done in no time at all. Your kids can help you with this, and this just adds another element of texture to your decor. These look so good with those fabric balls that I just did a second ago. And I added both of those with some of the wooden decorative filler that I have from Hobby Lobby. And I added all of those to one of my wooden dough bowls that I keep on hand and just change out the decor for each season. I love this one. This one just took me back to being at my granny's house and all of the decorations that she had for Christmas. Let me know what you guys think about this one. So that wraps up another round of Christmas DIYs. Thank you all so much for watching today. I really appreciate your support. If you enjoyed these projects today, please give this video a thumbs up. And I would love to know which of these was your favorite. And I would also love to know if you have any special memories or favorite memories from your Christmases as a child. Any special ornaments, decorations, traditions, anything like that. And I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy some time with family and friends if you are able. And I will see you in the next one.